back to the Naturally Balanced Hormones Show. I am your host, Marissa Fay. I am board certified in holistic nutrition and functional medicine practitioner, and I am here to give you all the juicy tips and tricks that you need in order to live a life as healthy and happy as possible with balanced hormones and demystify a lot of the trash garbage advice that you're getting out there. So, today's topic is my absolute non-negotiable exercise. It is what I require my clients to be doing, what I require myself to be doing. And I want to talk very directly with you about the standard you need to be holding yourself to in order to have good energy, good moods, good sleep, to feel good inside of your body, to not be super inflamed. This is part of the foundations that are non-freaking negotiable. And I see a lot of stuff out there. And I come from a background of, frankly, overdoing it on exercise. Well, underdoing and then overdoing. So let's story time before we dive into my recommendations on this for you to consider. And just a reminder, nothing I share is ever medical advice. I am sharing it just for educational purposes. And it may or may not be right for your body exactly where you are, but I will tell you a lot of what I share is advice and information that can help the vast majority of women who are in the throes of inflammation, mood imbalances, low energy, feeling like they can never lose weight, gut dysfunction. I am there with you. I have been there. I've helped hundreds of women who are there. So what I share comes from a space of what can help the majority of us. So story time first and foremost. So let's go back. Let's go back to young Marissa. When I was younger and in my adolescent years, there was a lot of stress in my home. I went through a lot of trauma and I took it out a lot on my body. I was ill-informed about what it really took to be healthy. And I was heavily influenced by adults around me who were heavily restricting food groups, and really into the idea of punishing exercise. So that was not for me at that time. And I was like, no, thank you to all of that. How about I just develop some disordered eating? That seems like a good fix. It was not, but it's a coping strategy I have a lot of empathy for, and I can understand why that was something I turned to. So in the presence of all of that going on, I gained a lot of weight, and I was very overweight as a young person in my adolescent years and 2021. And then I started to really dive in and learn more about health on my own. I realized no one else is going to fix this. No doctor. My family had taken me to doctors pretty much my entire adolescence. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? She keeps gaining weight, right? Nobody asked about the home. Nobody asked about the trauma. Nobody looked at our genetics. Nobody looked at my blood work from a functional medicine lens to see that my detoxification wasn't going well, that I had signs of metabolic dysfunction, because it was all there. It was all there. And those are all things that I do now when I work with women and teach you how to do inside of my courses. So nobody was doing that. So I got to the point, 2021, where I was like, I don't like how I feel. I don't like how I look, and nobody is coming to save me. So I'm going to figure this out. And in figuring it out, like a lot of us do, I went through a phase of overdoing it on cardio. And I would rally my friends at 9 p.m. on a weekday and say, we're going to the gym. Let's do an hour on the Stairmaster. So I started doing extreme amounts of cardio. Now, at first, you'd think like, okay, well, that's better than not moving your body. And I can definitely see the argument for that. But what that started for me was a real obsession with exercise. And I went from that into doing a lot of group fitness, a lot of home workouts like Chalene Johnson's Turbo Fire, which at the time I loved. And I felt like, oh my God, this gives me, and by the way, that's like a cardio kickboxing program. This gives me such amazing energy. That's the cortisol dump, by the way. It's like a mega stressor on your body. And the initial response to that for most bodies is going to be like, whoa, sky high energy, until eventually that burns out and you plateau. And then you have all the ramifications of your body being burned out on cortisol. And that's that cortisol dysregulation that I talk so much about on social media and in my course, The Balanced Cortisol Academy. But I was going through a lot of that. And so I realized, okay, maybe all cardio is not the answer as I started doing more research and becoming more educated. So then I started strength training. And you would think like, wow, okay, that sounds really good. But I started doing things like boot camp classes, like bodybuilding style prep in the gym. But I have been lifting weights and going to the gym now at this point in my life. Oh, let me do the math, 16, 17 years. So I'm no stranger to exercise, for the record. And through the years, I taught group fitness. I became trained in yoga. I was doing a ton of power yoga. I've done CrossFit. I've done workouts like Orange Theory. I've done all of those things, and all of those left me with even more messed up cortisol and even more messed up hormones and even more of those symptoms like fatigue and sleep disruption and hair falling out and cold hands and feet and inability to lose weight. I stalled. I plateaued in my weight loss. So I lost 70 pounds from where I was at 20 years old, but I couldn't break through further. And my body had more fat to give, which not everybody does, but my body really did. Okay. So I went from a size 20, 22 to a size 12, 14, and I hung out there for over over a decade. Yeah. Yeah. It takes me a minute because I'm like, whoa, was it really that long? Yeah, for over a decade before I broke through again. And part of what I'm sharing with you today is what actually helped me break through again. And I was already, by the way, doing this work. I was a few years into being a functional medicine practitioner and a holistic nutritionist, a few years into working with other women. And I had been through iterations of different, more intensive gut healing protocols, more intensive hormone healing protocols. And I kept hitting a wall. And I was like, what am I missing? What am I missing here? And when I stopped and I said, okay, Marissa, there's something here that connects all of these dots. What is it? What hormone is it? What system is it? What thing is it? And that thing is cortisol. So now I orient the vast majority of what I share with you on the bedrock, really, and the foundation of what tends to be good for cortisol balance, tends to be good for all hormones, tends to be good for gut health, tends to be good for mental health, tends to be good for full body health. So just know that's how I come to all of this, whether or not I say it in every single episode and every time we're together, every time I'm on social media, just know that I'm always thinking about cortisol. Cortisol is one of our primary stress hormones. Okay. And we live in a world where we as women are stressed the F out. Okay. I don't know where you're watching this, so I don't know if I can cuss yet. So I'll navigate that, right? But we are stressed out. We are stressed out from the emotional load we carry, the helper role we tend to have in other people's lives and in our families and with people we care about and in our work. We are haunted by our perfectionism of always feeling like we have to do things well and right. We are constantly putting ourselves lower on the priority list than other people. And we also somehow have ingrained in us this very masculine idea that we just need to push harder. And that is not the answer. Okay, so let's chat now about what exercise is non-negotiable and why, and where to set your goals when it comes to that exercise, because I see a lot of crap advice about that of people telling you to do too much. So here's the thing, and it may surprise you, it may not. The answer is walking. Okay. And a big asterisk there. I've worked with clients who have knee issues or hip issues, right? And so walking is something that is not accessible to them always or at all times. So you could swap this out for any truly low intensity bilateral, meaning you're moving one part of the body and then the other movement. So stationary biking, and I'm not talking the Peloton. I'm not talking the Peloton. And that's maybe a different episode or story. Leave in the comments if you want me to chat about the Peloton and what I think about it, my review of it, what I think it can help with, what I think it harms. There's so much there. Okay. But I'm not talking about something like that. I'm talking about something gentle, something easy with not a ton of resistance that you can do without feeling breathless. You're able to take deep breaths. It feels restorative. It doesn't feel taxing on really any level is what we're looking for there. Okay. But walking is so amazing, and any kind of bilateral movement that's low intensity, low impact is so, so amazing for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's bilateral in that we move one side and then the other. And when we're doing that, it stimulates one side of the brain and then the other, and it ping pongs back and forth. The beauty of that is when we're pinging one side of the brain and then the other one at a time, there's literally a whole modality of therapy based on this. If you've heard of EMDR or you've done EMDR, this is where it comes from. Okay. Literally, the founder of EMDR went on a walk and thought about, like, why is this so great at helping me move through stuff? This is why. At least that's the story that was handed down to me. Okay. So when we stimulate one side of the brain and then the other, and one side and then the other, and we continue to do that, it is very difficult for the brain to hold on to anxiety, to fear, to anger, to any of those sticky, troublesome emotions, right? It's difficult for the brain to hold on to it. So it literally is a way by moving to help us move through those difficult and challenging feelings. Now, those difficult and challenging feelings have a cascade effect in our bodies related to cortisol, related to our experience of stress. And so the more efficiently we can move through those feelings, the less we hold on to them and ruminate with them, the better. Okay. Not that it's bad to feel those things. It's not. All feelings are valid, but feelings are meant to be felt briefly. And we are all holding on to our little feelings bucket of everything we're feeling and letting it stir and stir and stir and cause more and more problems. And that hormone impact is happening and happening, and we are not stopping and interrupting. Walking helps to interrupt that, helps us to move through that, helps the brain to literally move through that. Okay. Walking also helps with recalibrating that cortisol response. So high intensity exercise. So something where you're doing 30 seconds of jumps and then a 20-second rest and repeat, something like a Peloton workout, something like an Orange Theory workout, something like a CrossFit workout. Those all are forms of high intensity training, by the way. They all have high intensity in them, okay? Where we're doing things where we're purposely trying to become breathless, where we're purposely trying to push yourself past your limit, right? Where you get to the point where you could feel nauseous, super out of breath. That is not good for us as women. It just is not, okay? Our male counterparts can do those things and benefit from them. female bodies, the way we are wired for safety, for security, for being sensitive to stressors, it is not helpful for the vast majority of us to do much, if any, of that style of training. So know that first and foremost. And by the way, if you're somebody doing those workouts, I feel you. I have been there. I've been through the grief of breaking up with some of those workouts. Let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments. We can chat because I've been there and I know how difficult it can be. But walking, one of the things it helps us do is reset that cortisol response, especially if you do it outside in natural light. So I'm such a stickler for getting natural light in our eyeballs, the way it can help regulate our circadian rhythm, which is our rhythm of when we're awake and when we're sleeping, and then the hormones that follow and support and make that rhythm happen. Okay. So I'm such a fan of natural light, whether or not it's sunny, whether or not it's cloudy, whether or not it's raining or snowing, whether or not it's cold or hot. Okay. Come hell or high water, if I can be outside doing my daily walk, I will do it. Okay. And that is something I recommend to everyone. Now, if it is really cold out, if it's really dark out, if it's unsafe for you to be outside, by all means, an inexpensive walking pad, a treadmill, join your local inexpensive gym, right? Get on a treadmill if you have to, but really outside is like chef's kiss, so incredible and amazing for you if you can do that. But that helps to recalibrate that stress response. It literally helps to lower cortisol typically, or it can help to ameliorate it if you're on the lower side of cortisol. Which, do you want me to do an episode about the difference between low and high cortisol and why hyperfixating on either one is not actually usually that helpful? Let me know in the comments because we could talk about it. But back to walking. So walking has these immense benefits when it comes to our experience of stress. And then walking also has the benefit of moving our lymphatic system. So our lymphatic system, think of it as your body's sewage system. It runs throughout your body. By the way, a third of your lymphatic system here and above, which is why I usually have clients like put their hands on their body, right? It's why things like dry brushing can be so helpful for some of us. But anyways, I digress. So lymphatic system moves sewage, moves things that are toxic from our body out from things like the vital organs and into a holding space. But that holding space does not have a pump. So it's not like our blood that has the heart to pump it. Literally, you have to manually pump it by moving it. Okay. So a walk is a fantastic way to move that lymphatic system so that sewage doesn't get stuck. So it doesn't sit in any one place. This is a really, really important thing when it comes to our toxic load, when it comes to hormone imbalances, when it comes to the development of scary diseases down the road. This is fantastic prevention and intervention that can be really, really helpful. So I love walking for that. And then finally, I love walking because it does support our cardiovascular health. Okay. It also can be a weight bearing activity that can support bone health. So it has a lot of incredible benefits. And also, we can often do more of it than we can of another form of activity without it provoking a reaction of stress hormones. So, for all those reasons, building a base of at least 30 minutes, working up to 30 minutes per day of walking is where I really give a recommendation across the board to the vast majority of my clients. So if you're not already doing that, I highly recommend it. Now, steps or walking, which one are we focusing on? So steps are great. And while we don't want you to be sedentary because that carries all kinds of other risks and detriments, I'm really a stickler for a true, like, I am walking, right? I am walking, not I'm chasing around a kid, not I have a job where I'm on my feet a lot. Like literally go for a walk where your focus is you, right? Where your focus is listening to a great podcast or an audiobook or having a conversation with a friend or a family member or just being in quiet or being in nature. Part of the benefit of walking is that it is done outside of our responsibilities to others. Okay. So that is the other piece of it. You can break it up. So, right, if you don't have a dedicated 30 minutes or you literally have been sitting most of your life and that feels daunting, set the goal at 10 minutes, right? Start there, add a minute every week until you get to 30, or break it up into 2 walks. So I have plenty of clients where they are teachers, for example. So my teachers will do like a 15-minute loop on their lunch break and a 15-minute loop when they're done with work. Something like that is totally fine. But building to and trying to hit 30 minutes a day of walking at not a crazy slow pace, right, is a really great place to be for most of us and should be just the bedrock of minimum things that you do for your health and your body. Prioritize walking over some kind of crazy structured exercise program. Okay. Walking is required. It is required, or again, that swap of a low intensity activity if walking is painful for you or something you literally cannot physically do. Okay. The next piece of this is I work with a lot of clients who have, like me, been stalled in weight loss or have goals related to weight loss. And they're following advice of, oh my God, I need at least 10,000 steps a day, or I should be doing 15,000 steps a day, or let me put on a heavy weighted vest, or let me do this or that and make walking even harder. No, 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 no. So here's the thing. 10,000 steps is not a magic number by which like the sky's open and all of a sudden you lose 5 pounds. That is not how it works. 10,000 steps being a goal is completely made up. And the history behind it, as I understand it, is a Japanese company who was making a pedometer many, many years ago said, how do we market this? How do we make this something people want? And they realized if we make a challenge and we say, we challenge you to hit 10,000 steps, that people are going to be more excited. They're going to be more interested. They're going to be more invested in this product. They're going to be telling people about this product and we'll sell more products. So let's do that. That's where it comes from. That's where it comes from, you guys. It comes from nowhere scientific. It comes from nowhere that's like actually intuitively that's how much we need. It's completely a marketing game. Okay. And what I have seen is that for some bodies, 10,000 steps is too freaking much. You start to get the bounce back and the bite back of cortisol now rising. Okay. So I usually set a goal, and it can depend on you. If you're coming from completely sedentary and you move your body none at all, a great place for you to start is like 2,500 steps. Okay. If you're somebody who is really active but isn't focused on walking, right? A great place for you to be might be 5,000 to 7,000. Okay. But I actually rarely, very, very rarely set a goal of 10,000 steps for a client, incredibly rarely. And personally, my goal is 7,000 steps a day. And I have felt really great doing that. I noticed that before I set that goal, I still was walking, but I wasn't quite as consistent. I was walking a couple times a week. I was really prioritizing the gym more. I was prioritizing things like power yoga more and lifting more and all of that. And while there are benefits there that we can talk about if you want, I still think the walking has done so much more for me mentally, physically, and emotionally that it has become my non-negotiable and my priority when it comes to movement. And a great example is like, I've had a really busy 2 weeks. I've been traveling a little bit and I haven't been as able to get to the gym, but I have made my daily walks non-negotiable, and that is still happening. And I feel good, right? Doing that. And I know that I can jump back into the gym next week when I'm ready to be back in that routine that I have. And I'm happy to share with you what that looks like when it comes to my structured strength training, because I do think the next level to this when it comes to physical activity is strength training and being really mindful and structured in the way you're doing that. And a lot of people are, again, doing that wrong and getting bad advice. But today's episode is all about walking. And I just want you to know 10,000 steps is not a magic number. It may not be right for your body. And I also, the way that I do it is a weekly average. There's some really cool studies, not that studies are the be all end all, but there are some really cool studies on the benefits of walking if we look at a weekly average versus like every single day. So I have some days, for example, where I only get like 4,000 steps, but it's okay. I make it up the next day by getting 9,000 steps, right? So I actually look at my weekly average, and I almost always have a couple of days where I am doing 10,000 to 12,000 steps. I'm active. I live somewhere where I can go hiking or skiing in the winter, be outside, right? Moving my body. And so it's fun and enjoyable for me to move more some days, but I then compensate. And some days I'm doing a lot less, right? 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 steps on a couple of days. So I really love that weekly average because it helps me keep things in check. And it's something I offer to you as a way to keep track of this that I think is really beneficial. The last little piece here is like, how do you track it? And I am not a fan personally of like a step counter of any kind. I think a really cheap pedometer is a great way to go. I think a lot of these wearable devices are problematic because we're exposing ourselves to that EMF like constantly, and I'm not a fan of that. And I think things like our phone are just not super accurate. So what I do is I walk pretty typical paths that I'm usually on. So I know the distance, like I'll look up on All Trails or on Google Maps, like what's the distance from here to here. And then I've looked up with my height, about how many steps it would be for me to go a mile, for example. And I just track that as a number. So for example, for me, about a mile is 2,400 to 2,500 steps. So I will just track that, right? If I know, oh, I just walked a mile, I'll just track 2,500 steps, for example, and I add that to the tracker that I use. So that's how I keep track of it. And I do enter that number, by the way, in my phone. I have an Apple phone. I just use the Apple Health feature, and I just make sure that the steps in there reflect what really is most likely how many steps I've had on my walks. Again, I don't carry my phone everywhere I go during the day, so I'm not tracking every single step I take because that is not what is most important to me. What is most important to me is the dedicated walking time. Okay. Dedicated walking time, 30 minutes minimum, every day. Now, you could take this average principle per week and look at your schedule. And if there's a day where you really can't do it, maybe the next 2 days you do 45 minutes, right? So look at this from an average perspective, right? Of every single week, 3.5 hours of walking. And I recommend that you try to walk at least a couple of minutes every day. And that 30 minutes per day really does tend to be the sweet spot. But if you need to find a little flexibility here or there, that could be a way that you modify it. Okay, that's what I wanted to share with you in today's episode. Let me know below your thoughts on this, if you'll try it, if you've done it, and how you feel. And I'd love to hear from you if any of this resonated with you. You can find me online right here, wherever you are watching or listening to this, with new episodes coming out just about every week. You can also find me at Marissa Faye Wellness on Instagram and on TikTok. That's MARISAFAYE Wellness. You can also find me at marissafaye.com, MARISAFAYE.com, for more information about working with me one-on-one or taking one of my incredible courses like the Balanced Cortisol Academy. And I will see you in the next episode of the Naturally Balanced Hormones Show.